Welcome to the first video in a series of videos that look at extension activities at 5-6. So I'm not going to go too far beyond 5-6, but I am going to look at some of the more challenging concepts to teach at those levels. The very first one I'm going to cover is integers. So I'm only going to cover a few things that are required to teach in year 6 and some that potentially may move into year 7. So let me just change screens here. Here you can see the year 6 content descriptors. Now this is from the V9 curriculum. But if you're not currently using V9, the version 8.4 is very similar. You can see at year 6, we need to look at and recognize situations where we locate and represent integers on a number line as coordinates and the Cartesian plane. So Cartesian or coordinate geometry is a very, very good way or place, a practical contextual place that students can use integers or positive and negative numbers on a number line. The other one is to investigate everyday situations that use integers and how to locate these on a number line. So the very first thing that we are going to do is we are going to look at the number line and how we can actually get the students to construct number lines and how they can work through problems that involve integers on those number lines. Now, I always like to get the students to draw their own number lines. I don't have a longer ruler than this, but this is okay. We can construct our straight line. So there are a couple of things that are important when you're working with number lines. The very first thing is that we need to understand or get students to recognize that the number line extends in both the positive and negative direction. So they need to be placing these arrows on the ends. I am going to centralize this number line. So with a length of 15, that's not easy, but let's just go halfway point 7. Okay. And this is where you want to get the students, or you want to encourage the students to practice building a number line or a number scale involving those positive and negative numbers, because there's a few misconceptions that students will have. So keep the distances or the increments between your ticks on your number line to a centimetre, just to start with. It's good practice getting them to rule it up. The intervals between each number will be 1 centimetre. Okay, so I find that one of the biggest things that students do when they first start working with number lines is they try to freehand it. So you want to set some really good, really solid sort of practices very, very early on. Let's indicate a 0. Now the 0 will be placed, it doesn't have to be in the middle, because as we know, the number lines will extend both in the positive and negative direction at either end. But when you're first starting, it's nice to have a centralized location. Now, we're used to only dealing with, or the students are used to only dealing with numbers in the positive region before they start being introduced to integers or positive and negative numbers. So get them to mark out their positive region first, so we know that it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. So you can see where the arrows are really important, because obviously number lines don't stop at the finite number that is shown on this number line. They continue on to infinity. Next, you want to start getting the students to recognize that as the numbers move further and further away from the 0 in the negative region, they actually decrease. However, a common misconception is students will see things like -1, -2, -3, and they will recognize the digit, but they won't recognize it as being a size of, a -3 is actually a lot smaller than -1. Whereas when we deal with positive numbers, 1 is smaller than 3. So that's one of the first hurdles that you want the students to start to understand and recognize. So it's almost like we're creating a mirror with the line of reflection is around the 0, and we just continue to decrease those numbers in that negative direction, even though the digit without that negative at the front is larger, gets larger as we go towards the left. The actual value, the magnitude of the number is actually decreasing. It's getting smaller. So that's a very important learning that you want to first begin to focus on with those students. Now, the other thing that you want to start doing is you want to start getting them to locate numbers on their number line. So where is 3? Where is -3? All of that sort of learning. So I'm going to start off with giving them 2 numbers. And the first number is going to be 5. So I'm going to locate my 5 on my number line, and then I want them to locate -3 on my number line. So right there. So just getting them to practice drawing your number line first and then locating where those different values are on the number line. So you can see that -3 is smaller than -5, smaller in value or smaller in magnitude. The next thing you want to do is you want them to start looking at differences. So if we were to look at the, let's call it distance between the 5 and the -3, you want them to start looking at how many values will separate these numbers, or you're trying to find the difference. Now, if we had 5 and we took away 3, we would have 2. So it doesn't quite work in that commutative sort of situation. So what you want to get them to start doing is start learning how to find those distances. So how far have we traveled? So we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the difference between 5 and -3 is 8. It has a difference of 8. So those are the main learnings that you want to do. So whenever you're starting integers, you really want to start getting them to look at the number line, practice those values on the number line. So you want them to do a couple of things. First, you want them to draw the number line. Can't spell, that's supposed to be number line. Then you want them to mark values on the number line. And finally, you want them to find the difference between values on your number line. So you want to focus on those 3 things. So again, when you're introducing integers, you introduce it using the number line and you follow these 3 things.